All right, so this is 18.2 part 2. Hopefully that's what you meant to click on. We are on example 7. We've been talking about 30, 60, 90 triangles and their special right triangles, just like our 45, 45, 90s. Here we have a 60-degree angle, and that means this is a 30-degree angle here, and this is the hypotenuse is 46. Now, we know the hypotenuse, that's 46, is going to be double the side, one of the sides. Which side is it? Remember when we have our equilateral triangle here? The side that's the shorter side, which is across from the 30-degree angle, let me get a different color here. Across from the 30-degree angle, you have the shorter side that's 12, and the hypotenuse is 24. So the shorter side is across from the shortest angle, the 30-degree angle. That's true for all triangles. If you recall, I've given you that little hint many times. So I know that this hypotenuse is double the shorter side. This is the shorter side because it's across from the 30. It has to be, remember, if it's a 30-degree angle, the side will be shorter than if it's a 60-degree angle. The side will be longer. So across from the 30-degree angle is the side that is half the hypotenuse. That's the side where the equilateral triangle has been cut in half. So if the hypotenuse is 46, then this side here would be 23. It has to be, because it's the side that's half the hypotenuse. So if that's 23, then we can use Pythagorean's theorem to come up with that other side x. And we have a 46 and a 23. 46 is the hypotenuse. So we're going to do the square root of 46 squared minus 23 squared. All right, so I'm just going to do that in my calculator, and it will clear it all up for me. So square root of 46 squared minus 23 squared is actually, it didn't give me it in radical form. Dang it. 46 squared minus 23 squared without the radical sign is radical 1587. All right. And it's because it has a radical 3 on the denominator. Anyway, let me see if maybe I do radical 1587. It will simplify it for me. Nope, it won't. But if I divide 1587, I know it's divisible by 3. I get 529. So this is radical 529, 9 times 3. And the square root of 529 is 23. All right, so square root of 529 is 23. So it comes out as 23, and I'm left with radical 3. All right, so this side is 23 radical 3 simplified and in radical form. Now, next one. This one is going to be a little tricky to come up with using Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to go ahead and just point back to what we did before. This triangle is going to tell us the side measures for this 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, and then I'm going to point it out with this one, and then we're going to use it from here on out. So we notice that this is our 30-degree angle, and this is our 60-degree angle because it is originally an equilateral triangle with all three angles 60 in the big triangle, making this one cut in half to 30. We know that the side across is 1, and the hypotenuse was 2. So we know to multiply by 2 to get to the hypotenuse, or if I'm coming back, I divide by 2. Okay. That's one thing we know. Now notice that this side is, whatever this DC is, it's 1 times radical 3. So if I know this side, which is the side across from the 30, which I like to call the short leg because there's a short leg and a longer leg in 30, 60, 90 triangles. It's not the case for 45, 45, 90s. 45, 45, 90s have 2 equal legs, which make them a lot easier. 30, 60, 90s have all different angles, and so they're going to have all different measurements. You have the hypotenuse, you have the short side, which is across from the 30, and the long side, which is across from the 60. What happens every time is, from the short side, you times by 2 to get to the hypotenuse, and you times by radical 3 to get to the longer leg. And then if you're going back, you divide by the same values. So if I have this short leg is 1, then to go to hypotenuse, I times by 2. To go to the longer leg, I times by radical 3. Okay? If I want to go back, let's do blue. So if I have the long leg, the one across from the 60, to go back, I divide by that radical 3. I'm doing it. And it's been multiplied by radical 3 to get to the longer leg. So I have to go back by dividing by radical 3 to get to the shorter leg. Okay? The same thing with the hypotenuse. If I have the hypotenuse, I half it, divide by 2 to get to the shorter leg, or times the shorter leg by 2 to get to the other leg. All right, so there you go. If you notice on this triangle right here, this is my short side across from the 30 degree is 23. Notice that the hypotenuse is twice that. And if I go to this longer leg that's across from the 60, I have 23, which is the short leg's measure, times radical 3. So that's what happens every time. Now, looking at this next triangle, this is the longer leg. It's across from the 60-degree angle. Okay. What we have here as x is going to be the short leg, the shorter leg. To go from longer leg to shorter leg, so longer leg to shorter leg on this case, or up above when we were looking at this one right here, if I'm at the longer leg and I want to go to the shorter leg, I divide by radical 3. So if the longer leg is 9 radical 3, then I need to divide by radical 3 to get to the short side, which is 9. Because radical 3 divided by radical 3 is 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. So that makes that leg 9, and then I can find the hypotenuse from there, because whatever the short leg is, I know the long leg is going to be twice it, so 18. And that gives me my x and y for that one. And that's what we're going to be doing, is navigating these 30, 60, 90 triangles and using that same ratio, 1 to 2 for the hypotenuse, and then 1 to radical 3 for short to long leg. And it always references off of the short leg. It's impossible to go, I mean, it's not completely impossible, but you have to go through the same motions. Otherwise, to go from longer leg to hypotenuse. To go from longer leg to hypotenuse, you have to divide by radical 3 and then double that, whatever is the remainder. You have to divide by radical 3 first. So you have to go through the short leg regardless. So hopefully you're given the short leg if you're given anything. If not, then find the short leg first so that you can perform the correct operations in the correct order. So we have x is 9 and y is 18. And we did that by taking our longer leg, dividing by radical 3 to get our x, and then our y, we doubled it. All right, now this next one is a little tricky. Okay. We have this angle is 30 degrees right here, so this is the short leg. All right, now to go from our long leg, which we have is 20, to short leg, we have to divide by radical 3. All right, so this one's going to be 20 divided by radical 3. Okay. And then we can't really leave it like that in these cases. We should rationalize. So we'll multiply by radical 3 over radical 3. We get 20 radical 3 over 3 for y. And then to get to x, which is the hypotenuse, we need to double that. So we have to take 2 times 20 radical 3 over 3. Now we note that when we're multiplying by 2, we multiply straight across, and we multiply outsides to outsides, so we have to remember a couple of rules that we've gone over the year. So 2 times 20 radical 3 is 40 radical 3, and on the bottom we have a 3. And those are our x and y. All right? So that's what we do for those two sets of triangles. So for reference, if I have given the short leg, I double the short leg for the hypotenuse, I divide by radical 3 in order to go to the longer leg. If I'm given the hypotenuse, I have to get the short leg first, and I always mark the short leg because that's the one that the other two are referenced on. So if this is D, the hypotenuse is D, I divide by 2. It's going to be half of D for the short leg. And then to go to the long leg, I have to multiply by radical 3. So it'll be D radical 3 over 2. All right? And then if I'm given the long leg E, remember I have to always go to the short leg next, so that's going to be E divided by radical 3. So I have to divide by radical 3 to go back. This E has already been multiplied by radical 3 to be there at the longer side. And then to go to hypotenuse, I times by 2. And remember, only multiply by 2, which multiplies to the top, not to the bottom. So 2E radical 3. And that's what you have to do for 30, 60, 90s. All right? I'm going to do the first two with you and then leave you to decipher the rest, which are a little tricky. I might, if I have time, do one of those last ones that are a little tricky. So for the first one, we have 5. 5's right here. Is that the shorter or the longer leg? Well, if we already know that side, that leg angle is 60, then this other angle has to be 30. So that is the short leg. It's across from the 30-degree angle. So x is the hypotenuse. To get to the hypotenuse, that's going to be twice, because it's the other side of the equilateral triangle, twice 5. So 2 times 5 is 10. And then this longer leg is going to be 5 times radical 3. So x would be 10, y would be 5 radical 3. Okay. On a 45, 45, 90 triangle, we know this is the other 45, and the two sides that are equal are those. So y is 3, right? So what will x be? Well, to go from the side to the hypotenuse, remember it's times by radical 2. So 3 radical 2. Yes? All right. I'm going to try to do another one that's a little more difficult. I have just a couple minutes till I hit the 15 mark. Let's see. Let's do number 14. It's going to be tricky. This is my 30. All right. I know this side right here is 7 radical 3, and it's going to be the short side. Okay, so the short side of this left triangle. This side right here is the hypotenuse, isn't it? So it's going to be double that short side. So it's going to be 2 times 7 radical 3, which is 14 radical 3. Okay. Now the long side, all right, the long side is right here, and it's going to be 7 radical 3 times radical 3. As we go short to long means we multiply by radical 3. So that's going to be 7 times 3, because radical 3 times radical 3 is 3, which is 21, which was right there. Okay. Now, if that's 21, that happens to be the short side of this right triangle, which I'm going to mark in red. That's the short side of this one. All right. So if it's 21, this y happens to be the hypotenuse here, and it's double that short side. So y will equal 2 times 21, which is 42. And z will be 21 times radical 3, which we just leave 21 radical 3. All right. So that gives us that triangle right there, XYZ. Okay. All right. Good luck with the homework. I hope it goes well. I'm going to set up a little meeting for this week. So if you have questions, attend our Google Meets and you can ask away. All right. Good luck.